let me just talk a little bit about what I saw some of the people saying in the chat, and somebody talked about performance enhancing, and that it says on my website that the products enhance performance. Well, of course they do. And there's a lot of science that proves that they do. But what people fail to understand is substances like caffeine, a central nervous system stimulant, has been proven to enhance athletic performance. Now, the way WADA and USADA and VADA deals with this and other substances that are widely being used by lots of athletes is they put what they call an allowable limit. So let's just say that for caffeine, that's 1,000 milligrams. Well, each cup of coffee, regular coffee, is 50 milligrams, espresso is 150. So as soon as you drink enough to be like 20 cups, which puts you over 1,000 milligrams, you will get a positive test for caffeine. So this idea about the snack products, enhancing or not enhancing performance, and that's what I'm claiming that they do. Protein enhances performance. It accelerates healing and tissue repair. It promotes protein synthesis or muscle growth. Will it make you stronger? Absolutely it will. And there's tons of science to prove that. So there seems to be some misunderstanding about, legal performance enhancing substances and what we'll call prohibited substances, not all of which are tested for by VADA or USADA. And let me clarify about that, because there was a bit of a discussion on the chat as well. So I'll address these things as I see them. WADA does not do testing. WADA is an organization that was started in 1999. The founding chairman was Dick Pound. It is the policies and procedures. I actually met with a lawyer named Rich Young in 2005. He's one of the attorneys that co-wrote the WADA code. There are about 35 laboratories throughout the world, and they provide the accreditation. They go and they make sure that they run standards and that they're producing accurate results, okay? Then you have national governing bodies. That's what USADA is. That's what UKAD is in the UK. Canada's got one. China's got one. Many different countries have national governing bodies that are governed by and follow the rules of WADA. Now, in my opinion, the testing done by WADA and those rules are inept. They're very weak. And the reason is because they have two sets of prohibited substances, and I'm talking about USADA now, and UKAD, comparing to VADA. And they have a certain list that they test for on fight night, and they have another list of out of competition that they test for on training camp. Well, I'm here to tell you today that 84 substances, all stimulants and all narcotics, are not tested for by USADA or any WADA accredited lab, UKAD, or any others. So talk about a giant loophole. You can use phentermine that Oscar Valdez tested positive for, which is the most prescribed weight loss drug in the world today. These guys are dropping 20, 30 pounds in a month. Well, they're using a drug that they're not testing for. That is a giant loophole that needs to be closed, especially in a sport like boxing, where you have to make weight, if that makes sense. Now, let's talk about, I said there's two, fight night and in competition and out of competition testing. VADA decided to tighten this up, and they believe that if a substance enhances performance on fight night, that it also enhances performance during training camp. So when you sign their enrollment form, it says that we will test for all prohibited substances at all times. So there's a big difference, okay, in what USADA is doing and what VADA is doing. VADA is far more stringent. Now, I'm going to also point out there is a huge problem with VADA testing as well. And what that is they only test for periods of time agreed upon by the fighters and promoters and whoever's going to pay for it before a fight. So that could be 5 weeks, that could be 8 weeks, that could be 12 weeks, depends upon what they negotiate. And then the frequency of testing that they do, that's all negotiated as well. So in one fight that would be Benavidez versus Andrade, well, there was only 6 weeks worth of testing. But when you have Spence and Crawford, there was 12 weeks worth of testing. So it obviously costs more. So the downside of all this is, and I'll use the Benavidez case as just an example, and this was started back by Floyd Mayweather, okay? And I didn't like it then, and I expressed it then, and I don't like it now, and everybody has followed suit with what he was doing, and that's the following. He was fighting twice a year, typically September and May. So he would do testing for, say, 8 weeks before the fight. Then he would test again in May, and he would go into testing 8 weeks before the May event. But from May until 2 months before September, and the same thing between September and May, there's no testing, zero testing. So whoever it may be, Benavidez and Andrade or Spence and Crawford, during those times, they can use all the performance enhancing drugs they like because they're not being tested. Except for, the only exception to that is this WBC program, which is inept, but still, I'm glad that it's there because they give a budget of about $10,000 a month to VADA, and then that enables them to do about what we call target testing. About 4 boxers per month get tested. A specific example of somebody they busted using the clean boxing program was the very first test for Conor Benn. The second test was done by VADA because he selected to sign up and pay through Matchroom to do VADA testing. But the very first test was a part of the target testing that they did, and when he came back and tested positive. So the point I want to make is that when you do these drugs in conjunction with intensive weight training and all sorts of things that also enhance protein synthesis or muscle growth or increase power and speed, these gains carry over for months and months, if not years. So what I'm telling you is, we'll go back to Mayweather. He would be in a pool, and then right after the fight, now's the time they need to test Benavidez, not previous to the fight, because that's when you can use the drugs, develop the speed and power gains, and then use that all the way up until the time when you sign to do the testing and enter the testing pool. Well, that's not unannounced random testing. That's called announced testing. So if you know there's going to be testing, all you have to do is just taper off, and different drugs have different clearance times. And next thing you know, you're into the pool. And if you notice, though, a lot of the boxers that do VADA testing, when they do test positive, typically, like BJ Saunders, like Conor Benn, the very first time they test them, they catch him because they may possibly miscalculated that taper period.